Good morning, everyone out there. I'm Jean Prewitt. I'm president and CEO of the Independent Film and Television Alliance, which produces the American film market. And as you all know, it is coming up very rapidly, opening up on November 5th. And we are incredibly appreciative of the interest you've all shown in the event and hope that you all either have registered or are strongly considering registering and are here to hear a little bit more about what's going to go on this year in what is our first year in Las Vegas and what really it has to offer you in terms of opportunities, information, and activities. And with that, let me just give a little bit of background for those of you who may not know much about the AFM. The AFM was created in 1981 by a number of essentially US and British sales agents to be the North American flagship for the independent film industry and its efforts to reach out to global buyers. Up until that point, the only really serious markets in the world were the ones at Cannes in May, in Milan in October, and growing, but not really a presence yet, Berlin in February. This group of very entrepreneurial, very competitive sales agents thought that it was important to have a strong presence in the US and to have a visible presence in a world that thought that all of America was dominated by the studios. Since that time, we have held the market every year. We're now on our 45th edition. There was one year in which we did it twice when it became clear that the Milan market in late October was failing, and it was important for the industry to have a market at year end. And we relocated ours to the November slot, which is where we've now been since 2004. The original purpose of the market really was to allow independent sales agents representing producers to discuss what they had on offer with buyers, distributors coming in from around the world in an effort to both place those films for distribution and also at an early stage to get support from those distributors for the plan they laid out for what the film would look like. Those many of us think of as the good old days because all you really had to have was a fantasy and a poster. People were so hungry for independent content that they would come to the market and talk very theoretically about what you could put forward over what time frame and what your theory was about what type of film it would be and what it would offer to their slate for distribution. Obviously, times have changed. Today, and you'll hear much more about this as we go through today's session, today's market requires really concrete plans. If you're going to be present in the market as a sales agent, generally you have to have locked down some cast. You have to have a very, very clear plan for what your film will look like. Hopefully you'll already know not only the genre, but you'll have a script in your hand. You'll be able to forecast quite clearly what budget you're looking at so that the buyer can judge whether or not you're able to deliver on your promises. And the quality level at which you'll deliver. But having said that, it is actually the same market. The majority of people who come and who support the market largely by their activities are the sales agents, many of whom now are producers, who are there to, frankly, make their own money. This is significant to them. This is not something that over the years is just kind of a passing interest. They have worked incredibly hard to package films, and their first priority coming into the market is to make the showings to the buyers that they need to make in order to go forward for another year of activity. And for those of you looking at purchasing attendee badges, it's extremely important to understand that. And that will guide a bit of your interactions over the course of the market. If people are abrupt, don't want to take a meeting with you right now, want you to come back in a couple of days, we really ask for patience and understanding, because there's going to come a day, if you're lucky, when they're abrupt because they're selling your film and they've made that their priority. So we sort of ask that everyone understand how that process unfolds. Today, we're going to be joined by initially two people, one of whom is Clay Epstein, who is IFTA's elected chairperson and is also the president and owner of Film Mode Entertainment. He's going to join us to talk a little bit more now, but then also lead a session with one of our other board members, Nat McCormick, who is president of worldwide distribution for the exchange, to talk much more specifically about how you work with a sales agent. This portion of today, with Clay's help, and then with the help of Kim Spurgeon, who is the head of the Nevada Film Office, which is a division of the Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development, is also going to talk about some of the other activities, but the importance of networking while you're at the market. For the first couple of days you're at the market, you will be able to take part in activities that are really curated for you. There is a full-blown set of AFM sessions, conferences that range from the hopeful to the practical. There'll be a number of our industry leaders who will talk about what they see the independent industry moving toward over the next couple of years. You'll have panels on key genres. What's selling now? What type of product do you have to bring to the market to attract first the buyers and then the consumers? And a number of smaller sessions that include film financiers doing Ask Me Anything You Want, talking very specifically about where money is today for projects, how you go about making your project fit for purpose to attract that money, and other sort of pitfalls, frankly, of using incentives if you haven't had some expert guidance, whether from Kim's office or her colleagues in other states or countries, or from experts in the field. So that will be going on. You will also have had access, partially as an attribute of your purchase of a badge, to really key industry resources. Sonando, which is a broad compendium of information that was originally the market guide for the Cannes Film Festival and is now used by all of us as the directory of who's who in the industry. Through Sonando, you can find at least a summary of pretty much every sales agent and producer in the world, with pictures of their executives, showing what type of product they specialize in. And we'll come back to that point in a second. You can also locate some of that same information in the film catalog, which we put out, which is available now to everyone. Again, showing you the companies that come to market and what they specialize in. You'll quickly be able, by flipping the pages, to see this company seems to do almost exclusively horror. This company seems to do art house films. This company seems to do this. You need that information coming into the market as you begin to try to understand who might be attracted to what you're doing and how to prepare yourself for those conversations. There obviously are also the industry trade papers that will give you more topical stories about a lot of the same people. And sometime in early October, if you're registered, you'll also have access to the AFM app, which will show you not only everyone who is going to be at the market, but exactly where they are. It'll include maps of where people's offices are. It'll show you where the sessions are being held. And importantly, this year, it will show you where the lounge is up on the, I don't know, 54th floor. It's called The View. And that lounge will be open to attendees with attendee badges so that you can grab a cup of coffee, talk to your fellows, and at least get a little bit of breathing space. I think with that, I'm going to want to turn this over both to Clay and Kim. I have been reminded that I am supposed to tell you that we have people monitoring questions you might want to ask. You'll see a button on your screen for Q&A. You can go in at any point and post a question. We have people who at the end of each of these two sessions will moderate responses to those questions and call them out specifically to us in the first instance, and then secondly to the panelists in the second session for answers. So feel free at any point, even if you already came into this with questions and want to make sure somebody speaks to that point, just go ahead and start posting and we'll come back around and check with them. I think in terms of just sort of thinking about the market, at the Palms this year, and this is similar to other years if you've been there, if it's not an experience you've had, it's important to know that all of our activities are located in the aptly named Fantasy Tower. And we can all make jokes about that, but it's at least a positive spin on what we're all doing. The sales companies are all located in either hotel rooms in between floors 8 and 26 in that tower. And those are very well marked. There'll be a big guide in the elevator lobby, or they're in a communal room in the also in the tower, but reached by a different elevator. Again, very well marked. Film commissions and others carrying out those functions will be located on the second floor in a room right next to where your sessions are. So all of the commissions are going to be very easily accessible, particularly during breaks in the sessions or at other times. And I'll give a shout out to the commissions if Kim does not, but you should be aware that they are your lifeline. If you are thinking about filming something, going somewhere, they're the people that are going to make the keys to the city available to you, if only by telling you where to park, all of which is important if you're coming in with trucks. I think with that, I'm going to throw this over to Clay to talk about what's going on in the offices in the tower. And then we'll come back to Kim, who can give you much more detailed information, both about Nevada, but also about what her peers in other locations want to talk to you about. Clay?
Thank you, Jean. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Clay Epstein, and I am the chairman of IFTA. I'm on my second term, so I have one more year to see this through success in Vegas. And in addition to the elected office of chair, I'm also the owner and president of Film Mode Entertainment, a worldwide sales company and a production entity that is exhibiting at AFM. And I hope you don't get too sick of me this morning, but I will be on for a while. We're going to talk about AFM, and I wanted to take this opportunity to describe AFM more from a holistic approach, as well as to give you some tips on how to navigate AFM. And later in the presentation, Nat and I are going to have a very lively conversation about the nitty-gritty and the details and pulling back the curtain on what sales companies actually do and what we're spending our time doing at AFM. But I want to paint a bit of a picture. So the place I am in my career now, I believe this is my 25th AFM. And I'm not young, but I don't like to think of myself as old, but this is still my 25th AFM. And my first one was at the Lowe's in Santa Monica in 1999. And I was an assistant at a very large sales and production company that is no longer in existence, not with my doing, but they're no longer around. But I remember that experience so clearly, and we all wore suits and ties at the time, but I had no idea what I was doing. And I remember having to navigate through this week. Now, as a sales assistant, I had to do a lot of preparation. So for weeks and weeks leading up to the AFM, I was responsible for a lot of the preparation, the setting up the office, the meeting schedules, etc. And I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what it was going to be like. No one was telling me how to prepare. No one told me how to network or how to engage people once I got there. I really had to wing it. And as you do in Hollywood, you fake it until you make it. So I pretended as if it had been my 10th AFM and pretended to know everything. So all of you on this call get a little bit of an extra bit of tips and tricks. Now, you're also attending as producers or filmmakers, some of you returning, some of you coming for the first time. What's exciting, even if this is not your first time, it's going to be your first time at the AFM in Vegas. It's all of our first time. And in some exciting way, I feel like this is my first AFM all over again. And that's probably the most exciting part of this year. But let me paint this picture for you. In this tower that Gene mentioned, there are going to be hundreds of sales companies like Film Mode, some larger, some smaller, that are renting offices. So they take the hotel room, they take the beds out of the hotel room, and we bring in nice furniture and we set up TVs and we put up posters and we schedule meetings back to back for 5 or 6 days with distributors from around the world that we are working with and discussing in acquiring the distribution rights of the films we're producing or representing. So you have to think about the fact that the amount of investment and time that our companies and my colleagues' companies are putting into AFM, it has to be successful for us. It has to be financially successful for us to continue doing what we're doing. And it takes weeks and weeks and weeks of preparation, both financially as well as the sweat equity and the time we put into it, right? We literally are moving our company to Las Vegas into a hotel room, and it has to be successful for that week. We are presenting films that are sometimes made, sometimes in post-production, and sometimes, like Gene said, a poster and a fantasy and a dream that we are hoping to convince investors or distributors to come on board for the ride. Again, think about this. We are not coming to AFM without scheduled meetings, hoping to run into people. We come with a fully booked schedule. My team at Film Mode, there will be 3 of us in meetings at all times, plus breakfast, lunch, and dinner meetings, plus whatever parties or drinks are after dinner. And yes, it's fun, but it's still work. So even though we're at parties or drinks, we're still working. You never know who we're going to run into or who we're entertaining. I also have support staff to take care of. There are companies that are taking 4 or 5 offices, and they're probably bringing 10 or 12 executives that are in simultaneous meetings and the lunches and the dinners. So we're not coming hoping to run into people or standing at a booth that you might see at a fair or festival trying to sell a t-shirt and hoping a consumer walks by. This is a B2B environment. But AFM cannot happen without all of you. We still need the filmmakers, the producers, the hopefuls, the ones that have ideas and dreams or trying to get into the industry. This is the only event in America that is dedicated to the independent filmmaking community. Think about that. The only event in the US. Sundance is a festival. It is not an industry event. All the festivals are not markets. They are only festivals celebrating the films and the filmmakers. So this is the only opportunity that you have to meet and see how the industry works and to try and become part of that industry. So we are inviting you to come, and we want you to come. And our ask for you is to be professional. That's my only ask. And all my colleagues will agree with me. We just ask you to be professional. So what does professional mean? Well, the best way to describe that is giving you an example of what not to do. Here's what you don't do. You don't interrupt my meeting in my office while I'm trying to license distribution rights to sustain my company and my business and try to pitch me a film you have not made yet. I don't know you, you haven't made the movie. It's impolite to interrupt anyone talking, even if you're at your own house and your wife's talking to your child. Number one, you don't interrupt. So there are parts to our industry, like any social environment, manners, professionalism. And the reason I start with this example is it's happened to me more than once through my career, where someone barges into my office and interrupts my meeting. My office is such that it's only one room, so they may see me as they walk in. The larger companies, you probably wouldn't even have access to that executive because they're in a blocked off room. So to take this a step further, if you want to be taken seriously and you want to be treated professionally, it starts with how you present yourself. And this is not unique to the film industry. It's how you dress, it's how you speak, it's how you present yourself. And probably the biggest tip I can give you is to try to engage with that company before you get to Las Vegas. I receive emails all the time from submissions, sometimes blind, sometimes not, where I've been introduced through 2 or 3 people. I may send it to my support staff or my acquisitions team. But the best way is to engage with the sales company before you even get to Vegas. I'm attending AFM. I have a film I finished. Here's a promo. I have a film I want to do. Here's a deck. Here's a teaser. Always have materials. It's very easy for an executive to delete just an email if it says, I hope to make a movie and I want you to finance it. That's not a professional email. But what is a professional email is, I've been developing this film. We're speaking with this cast or that cast. I've created a full marketing deck for you to have all the information that you need. Plus, I've done a teaser or a video that shows you what my vision is, interviewing the filmmakers. So that tells us as executives, you're serious, you've invested the time and money to get to this point, and you may actually have a project that we'd be interested in. And if we're not, I usually have the courtesy for that sort of email to say, this is not a fit for us, but I hope to see you at AFM and drop by and say hello, right? So those sorts of approaches are going to be much more successful for you than interrupting a meeting and being unprofessional. Attending these seminars is key to your networking opportunity and to building that professional aura about yourself, learning how to talk, learning how to pitch your film or your project, learning how to sound professional. And that is what's key. If you do not come to AFM, you will not meet anyone. I know that sounds simple and it's kind of a funny advertisement, but it's true. If you're not there, you're not there to meet anyone. And I remember, to take that a step further, I remember during COVID, the press were asking us, do you think film markets will exist after COVID? And I said, not only will they exist, we want to be with people. We want to interact with people. I want to take my clients and producers out to lunch and speak with them and learn more about what their needs and hopes are and how their business is going. And I will just end on one note. Not only have I met some wonderful filmmakers that have attended these seminars at AFM, I have acquired and distributed probably 3 to 5 films of filmmakers I have met at these seminars. Whether it was them engaging me early or them coming to my seminar at AFM and having a trailer of the film, and they acted professionally as if they had already been in the industry for several years. And those are all success stories I like to share. So thank you very much. I hope you are here to ask some questions we can help shed some more light on. I invite you to stick around with my conversation with Nat. And with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Jean.
Thank you very much, Clay. All of that, of course, is incredibly helpful. I think that the underlying messaging here is make appointments before you come. Make the contacts. Take advantage of things like the exhibitor list, which you can easily find on the American Film Market website. Take advantage of both the film catalog and Sonando. look and see who seems to be a match for what you're doing. And as Clay has said, if you write to somebody and you get something back that says this isn't a fit for us, almost always they are going to say you might be interested in talking to so and so, or you should be looking at a company that specializes in this genre or this language or whatever. So just even the course of reaching out for appointments generally leads you somewhere. And when we talk about networking, I have been reminded that networking at AFM matters. I mean, Clay has picked up pictures from AFM contacts. There certainly was a film in Venice this year that came out of a series of contacts, starting with attendees at the AFM. And on a side note, apparently a number of marriages have come out of the AFM and contacts. These are people with whom you will spend your professional life. And so just the process of being there with them is in and of itself incredibly valuable. But I really do encourage you to hear what Clay is saying. It's not that people don't want to talk to you, they do. And they love the idea of enthusiasm and imagination, because really at the end of the day, nobody knows what's going to catch the next wave of audience interest. But choose your moment and, I don't know, get with the flow and recognize that people are likely to be looser toward the end of the market than the earlier portion of the market, and plan your stay accordingly. And with that, I'm going to turn you over to Kim, who will talk a little bit about what you should be doing with your time in terms of the networking and in terms of how to rely on film commissions during the course of the entire year. You make the contact at AFM, you get information, you're always going to come back and think, wait a minute, maybe this is something I want to take to Nevada or Missouri or wherever. I have a card from that location. Let me go back and find out what's happening there. So Kim?
Thank you so much, Jean, for the introduction, and thank you to IFTA for inviting me to share with you the importance of working with film commissions and why you should visit us all at Location Expo at this year's AFM. First, if you've never worked with a film commission before, we are a free resource. We are here to help you make the connections with the things you need to succeed when you're filming in our regions. And film commissions can exist on the state level, the local level, if you're not in the US, on a country level. We exist all over the world, and we all kind of provide the same free service. And that's connecting you with film-friendly locations. We know what you need to permit certain areas, or which areas to avoid, because they're hard to permit, where you'll run into that red tape. We know our local crew base and our local vendors and service providers. Most film offices have both a locations database and a crew and services directory on their website that you can search online at any time. But also, if you want to send us an email or pick up the phone to ask a specific question, we are here to answer those questions as well. And most film offices, if they don't administer the film tax incentive program of their region themselves, they at least can share information about it and how to access it. Those tax incentive programs can be rather tricky to navigate. And you should definitely ask for assistance if that's what you're pursuing for your production. We are a wealth of information, and we are here to share it with you. So again, if you've never worked with a film office before, please reach out. And as Jean said, you can do this all year round. That's what our office does. And we're here to help. But the reason you should come to see us specifically while you're attending AFM at Location Expo, which Jean mentioned will be on the second floor of this year's location. I guarantee that there's something about the regions that are showcasing there that you don't know. You may think, hey, I've been to Las Vegas. I know what Nevada has to offer. I've seen The Hangover. I've seen Ocean's 11. But we're much more than that. And film commissions are responsible for knowing their regions and what we have to offer. Nevada also has mountains and lakes and ghost towns and natural rock formations that look otherworldly, like you could double it for Mars, things like that. And I guarantee that every region showcasing at Location Expo will have similar things to share with you that you are only going to find out by talking to us and asking those questions. You may think, oh, my script calls for this, so I can only film in this specific region, without knowing that our landscape throughout the US and throughout the world is so diverse, and you may not be aware of all of these hidden gems within our regions. And so again, that's another reason why you should come talk to us while you're here. Those of us with booths will usually have people manning our booths to be able to help answer these questions. We'll also be walking around and attending the sessions and networking and working the event ourselves to try to build those relationships. And it's not just the filmmakers specifically that we can help. You know, last year's AFM, we met with a distributor who actually lives in Las Vegas. There's several Las Vegas-based distributors that, traditionally attend AFM. And he asked us a very smart question, which I really appreciated. And he asked, who are the up and coming filmmakers that you guys know of? Who are the people already producing films in your region that are working the festival circuit? You know, who's made a short that they're now working on their feature film? Who doesn't have distribution yet that really deserves a chance? And I really appreciated this question because no one knows the local community like that film commission. That's our job, is to know what resources we have available. And we also get pitched ideas from our local community members all the time. And we think, oh, that would be such a great project to film, and it would be great to film here. But really, we can't help you until you have funding and are ready to, scout locations and make call sheets. So this market creates a very great opportunity for those film commissions, not only to pitch their regions, but to share with everyone the talent that's already here and help them network. And that's what our office will be planning on doing this year as well. And another note just on how important that networking is, in terms of attending AFM for Location Expo, our office has been attending for several years now. And as a state agency, we have very few marketing dollars to work with. So we have to be very smart about how we use those resources to market our region, because we want your business. We want to market to you and have you film your next production with us. So we see that economic benefit, but we don't have a lot of marketing dollars, and we choose to spend it on AFM because of the networking value it provides. This is a business event. It's not a film festival where just anyone can come and watch a movie and decide they like the movies and that's what they're going to do is attend. This is for business, industry, professionals. And having that network all together, all of these people all in the same location with the same goals. You could meet anyone just grabbing a cup of coffee, standing in line, waiting at the bar for a drink. All of these are opportunities to network, to make connections. And a lot of times those connections carry you out through years. As Jean was saying, a lot of relationships are formed during AFM. And that's the value that I think this market brings for us, because this is a relationship business and you should work on fostering those relationships.
Thank you, Kim. That's incredibly helpful, I think. But also, I want to say to everybody, this, of course, is our first year in Las Vegas. One of the first calls we made was to Kim's office. So we are firsthand users of their services and continue to call them quite regularly for things like, we need a new videographer. We're not going to bring somebody from California to do that in a city that is known for its entertainment sector. We call them. We've called them, for example, to get connected to the film programs at the local universities, which will now feed our internship program. They're really just, not only are they incredibly helpful, they are there to be helpful. And I think that's important. The other thing that they do know is they've seen it all. You know, if you're trying to figure out just the physical issues related to production or financing or who's active in the marketplace, they know that. So even if you're not currently thinking of filming there, those again are contacts that build out your information base. And we're incredibly excited at how many commissions will actually be with us next month. And I think Jennifer's appearance here, by the way, is to start the Q&A.
That is right. We have quite a number of questions. We will try to get to as many as possible. The first thing I'm going to do is read not a question, but a comment. Somebody is typing in saying, I had a film hoping to shoot in Nevada and recently connected with Kim's office and they were awesome. So just a thank you to Kim and her team. We are getting a lot of questions about television projects. Clay, do you want to address what the viability is of the market for television? Is it just a feature film market, or is TV also is it also a place for television?
So AFM is primarily a feature film environment. Some documentaries, but primarily a feature film narrative environment. That does not mean some documentaries are there. It does not mean there's some series. But the other thing that our filmmakers need to remember is when it comes to television, television is not so much an independent space, right? Broadcasters, streaming services, it's a very corporate environment. And there are some TV markets. There's something called NATP in Miami. There's an event called MIPCOM in France, which I'm attending next month. So you have a lot of international broadcasters and TV showrunners attending. There used to be MIP TV in Cannes. Now it's going to be in London, I believe. But I would still invite them to come and network, because there's probably going to be executives at AFM that may be doing television, but they may not be focused on TV during that week. But they'll say, you know what, we still do series. We're just not focused on it here. Or my TV sales team was at MIPCOM in October.
Great. We've got a question from Maggie Grant. Is it worth it to go to AFM if you don't have a finished film, but you do have letters of intent from named actors and a production team in place?
What's more important than the production team necessarily are those assets to show a potential partner what it is. So I come back to that teaser or a proof of concept or a short film was based upon a very good script, a deck that lays out exactly what you want to do, budget, all those preparations that are needed to show someone, not only do I have an idea, but it's being developed, right? Because anyone you're going to pitch to is going to think, how much work is it going to take from my side to get this ready for production? Because you have to think that every company exhibiting at AFM has their own development slate. And their own films are trying to get up and financed into production that they own 100% of the copyright of. So what is going to incentivize them to give you their time and energy and bandwidth and turn on their team's efforts to partner with you? So you need to give them a reason, an incentivizing reason. Ideas mean nothing. Everyone and anyone has a great idea for a movie. Means nothing. It's what you do with that idea. You turn it into a reality. That's what takes the hard work, the financing, the professionalism, the efforts, the expertise. So the short answer to her is yes, come to AFM. Because if you don't, you know it will never get made. If you come to AFM, you might meet some people that are interested in working with you. But do the preparations to get there.
Great. And we're getting a lot of questions about when is the right time to attend AFM. Jean, do you want to take that one for us, maybe?
Well, I would strongly argue you should be there for the whole thing. But a couple of pieces that are relevant. The sessions begin on Wednesday. November 6th. Monday is technically not the market, but companies are setting up their offices Monday and beginning their process of meetings. As I'd said, there is usually more room on their calendars toward the end of the market, the Friday, Saturday timeframe. So within that context, I would say what you're really looking at is make your appointments, number one. And that's going to drive part of your schedule, but assume that they're going to be back-ended on the Friday and Saturday. And then look at the session schedule and see how to make the greatest use of the early days in the networking process, in getting the lay of the land, in learning something, and balance it out. So that really, I go back to my original thing. If you can do it, be there the whole time. If you can't, look specifically both at your own schedule and the session schedule, and look at the 3 to 4 days later in the market.
Can I add something?
Sure.
I'm going the whole time, and all my colleagues are going the whole time. So just think about that.
Clay will be there the whole time.
I will be.
And there's quite a few questions also from people asking, at what point should they go with their project? Is it if they have a finished script? Is it just when they have a finished film? At what point does AFM become a good place for them to go if they are seeking to start relationships and try to get their film out there? Clay, you want to take that one?
Sure. Well, I'm going to separate it between the seminars and going to the sales offices. The seminars are great for everybody. So whether you haven't even written a script yet, go to the seminars, because you may learn what to write or how to write, or how to take that draft that you have thought that's great and how to modify it to make it more market friendly or to make it more appealing to the industry. So the seminars are more of that educational environment with the networking component. Going to meet sales companies or potential production partners or potential financiers, you need to think about, what do you have that's incentivizing someone to partner with you? If you've never written a script and you have just a script with no money, no cast, no director, no producer, then that's going to be a really hard ask from a company or from an established producer to say, sure, let me put the one I have that has a producer and a director to the side, and let me focus on yours that may never get produced, right? But if you have some cast, or maybe you have an actor that has that's meaningful, you have some financing already attached, you have a script that is existing IP, which means based on a book that was published and known, an adaptation, a sequel, a prequel, some sort of IP that brings value. Now you are adding incentivizing reasons for a company like Film Mode or equivalent to want to speak with you. Again, it's still sales. You're selling yourself and you're selling the material that you're hoping to get made.
Great, thank you. And Kim, how would people make contact with you and get in touch to set a meeting? Can you talk about that process a little bit?
Sure. The easiest way is to go to our website and find our contact information. And that goes for the same of any film commission. We all have websites. A quick Google search will bring us there. For our film office, nevadafilm.com is our website. Reach out and email us or give us a call to get that appointment scheduled. And I encourage you to do that with all of the exhibitors attending at Location Expo.
And again, the Location Expo exhibitors will be included on our exhibitors list. So it's going to be fairly easy for you to identify who's coming. And it's a wide range. It's Baja California and Romania and Nevada and some individual cities that have suddenly found themselves in a position where they're attractive. So go through the list and make the appointments you know are relevant, but also go visit them on the ground when you're there.
We'll take one more question, and that is, Clay, I think you'll cover this more in depth in the next part, but how, when you're looking at these companies online through AFM's resources, what are you looking for to figure out if one of these companies is a good fit for you?
Just to clarify, are they referring to themselves as producers?
No, their project.
Their
Well,
project.
they're looking at the sales agents to see
Right. Yes.
who
Okay.
would fit their project. Yeah.
Okay. So part of doing your research is, I mean, all the sales companies are going to have some sort of website, but probably IMDb Pro is your greatest tool, right? Because not only will it show what the companies have done, but it'll show you what the executives have produced. So if you go onto my IMDb Pro page, you'll see what Clay Epstein has executive produced or produced. And you can also click on Film Mode Entertainment's page and see what Film Mode has represented. Most of the time it's the same, but not always. I've EP'd a few films that I'm not selling or not selling anymore, previous companies. And that gives you a very good sense of their style, the type of genres they're interested in, the budget sizes they're interested in. I would also say, I know it's a selfless plug, but our YouTube page, Film Mode Entertainment, has a YouTube page. You find our trailers on there, so you see how we market our films. We have a Facebook page. You see how we present and promote our films. And the more research you do, the more familiar you become with a company and an executive that you want to meet, it's only going to be more seamless.
And you also remember, if you start with the exhibitor list, that will link you back to the film catalog. And then ultimately you can also look at Sonando, and those in about a paragraph are the way every company represents itself. And if they have a very strong bent toward a particular genre or particular language, a particular type of film, you'll pick that up right away. And then the individual film listings that you take a look at are what they're currently bringing to market. In some cases, they're finished films. In some cases, they're films where they're still looking for distribution or financing. But by and large, you develop quite quickly, and certainly looking at recent films, you develop quite quickly a sense of what their profile is. And any of those resources will give you the names of their executives, at which point you can pop over to IMDb Pro or IMDb and see what the history of those individuals are. So the information is out there. The question is interpreting it. And I guess, Clay, if somebody wandered into your sphere saying, I have this very good, I don't know, Spanish language rom-com with a budget under 2 million, or, looked at your profile, is that something that would match with you? If not, what should they be looking at?
Probably not, right? And there's
Right.
Spanish production entities and sales companies, because that film is going to need a local Spanish broadcaster or local Spanish distributor in Spain to probably be the first partner on board in a financial sense. And that should be then that producer's focus, especially if they have a Spanish passport, right? I just wanted to add that, again, selfless plug, we do consultancy services. We're not the only ones, however. There are companies, there are individuals in the industry that will, if they believe in the material, right, help the filmmakers get it ready to try and find partners in a consultancy upfront fee sense, right? We don't do that with hundreds and hundreds of projects. It's usually material that comes to us that we say, look, there's certainly something special here. It's not ready for prime time, but you can certainly access Film Mode's team in a different model to have us help you get it ready for prime time. But we are not the only ones that do that. But it's still going to be curated. It would still be curated.
Great, and we do have to move on, but I do want to make mention, there's so many questions about pitching at AFM. One of the centerpieces of the American Film Market Conference is our pitch conference. If you buy a badge that is a plus or a platinum badge, as soon as you register, you are able to submit yourself to possibly take the stage and pitch your project at AFM. There's a lot more information on the website. But that is one of the big advantages of coming to AFM, is to be able to get up and pitch in front of a very, very senior and award-winning group of people, as well as an audience. And everybody should take advantage of that if you're coming to AFM. With that, I think we will say goodbye to Jean and Kim, and thank you very much. We will launch right into how to work with sales agents. Clay will stay with us. And for this discussion, I want to welcome Nat McCormick. Nat will be with us in just a minute. There is Nat. He looks like he's in Las Vegas, but he's not there yet.
I couldn't resist. I'm sorry, everybody, or you're welcome.
Nat is president of Worldwide Sales and Distribution at the Exchange, a leading sales and finance company that specializes in high quality independent commercial films that appeal to North American audiences and the ever evolving global marketplace. And if anyone is just tuning in, Clay Epstein is also with us. Clay is the president and owner of Film Note Entertainment, a worldwide sales, production, and distribution company focused on commercially driven independent feature films of all genres and budgets. Combined, these two have worked on hundreds of films and with hundreds of producers. So this is a really, really good talk that you're going to hear right now.
Thank you, Jennifer. Nat, thanks for joining me for a fun conversation. So to give the viewers a bit of context, I've been doing a form of this conversation for 10, 15 years, but always at AFM during the seminars. And I started out doing it just me and a microphone, and that turned into, over the years, a panel of 3 or 4 guests and myself. And it was always fantastic, and we'd always have filled rooms. But the discussion this year was, we would like more filmmakers to hear it and to see it, because it's valuable information. It's the core of what AFM and IFTA is about, and certainly important for filmmakers to understand what it's like to work with sales agents. So we're transitioning to this digital format before AFM, accessible to everyone, in hopes that it will be more helpful to the community at large. So Nat is a colleague of mine. We've served on the board together as well. So he also is a treasured volunteer in the independent film community. I'm going to ask Nat's first question. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your first AFM that you ever attended and what your experience was? Because I shared that at the top of the Zoom originally.
Okay, that's a good way to start into it. Well, Clay, first of all, and IFTA, thanks for having me on, and happy to chat through this and do what we can to help the independent filmmaking community. It's an understatement to say it's hard to be an independent film producer. So with that being said, my first AFM, it was in Santa Monica. At the time I was working for Odd Lot International, which was a company run by Gigi Pritzker. And I think I had like one suit. I had one suit. It didn't fit quite right. And but I had no idea really what the whole independent sales world was. It's funny, coming from film school at the time, they just didn't teach any of this whole business, sales, financing part of the business. And so seeing it for the first time was really incredible. Like, it was a sight to see. It was incredible. You came away from it, and this is the same response we still get from, interns when we have them at the AFM for the first time. They're just like, this is incredible to see it all, come together in real time, just the conversations. And it just became something very tangible and fascinating to see. So, I mean, that was my biggest takeaway from the AFM first time. If you're considering going for the first time, you will just tangibly see how it happens in real time.
Thanks, Nat. Yeah, I remembered I explained my first one. I had two suits, I think, and I'm gonna remember that they fit, but that's probably just my memory, so it's a nice memory. Can you explain what sales agents do? Kind of the core model that a sales agent works under?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's evolved over time. But even before my time in the 80s and the 90s, which maybe were the heyday of the independent, sales model kicking off, was essentially, when a movie is not financed upfront fully by a studio, or today a studio or streamer, it's an independent movie. So what we do is we facilitate the finance piecing together, finance raising for a movie. And oftentimes, especially historically, it's going out and pre-selling a number of international territories to create collateral that can then be turned into a loan with a bank or a lender. And then also complementing that with some equity investment from a high net worth individual or fund, complementing that with a soft money piece, which is free money from a government or a state, and putting together the entire finance plan. Sometimes, today, even more so than I'd say historically, we're just going out and we're finding an equity investor to fully finance the entire movie. And we might say, we're going to sell this once there's footage. So, the big thing that we do is we get a movie financed when a studio or streamer is not just writing a check up front for it.
And if someone, I mean, I can add then the difference if a film is completed and was already financed, usually through private equity, and the filmmakers did not have a sales company on board before they made the film. They've made this film, and now they say, now what, we want to get the film released. We have to get the film into distribution. And the sales agent is the distribution expert. And the sales agent will then represent the distribution rights of your film and discuss with distributors all over the world to license the rights and have that film released in those territories. The subtitling, the dubbing, the localization of it all comes after the film has secured distribution throughout the world. And the sales agent works usually on a commission basis with some additional fees to promote and market the film, and attends film markets similar to AFM year round. So we go to Cannes, we go to Berlin in February, we go to Toronto in September, we go to Hong Kong in March, we go to MIPCOM sometimes in October. There are then festivals that are so key to our industry. It's kind of like Venice, and several others that we go to some years we don't. But we are constantly on the road. That company is working for you constantly on the road, trying to get your film into distribution with the strategy, with the timeline, and with a plan that is going to benefit the exposure of your film. Now, here's the big question, that, what goes into the potential likelihood of getting distribution for a film in terms of genre? What's commercial?
Yep.
What does that term mean, commercial?
Yep. And just to add, so that is the 1-2 punch, right? Punch one is get the movie made. Punch two is get the movie distributed across the planet. So as far as what the marketplace is looking for, right? There are certain things that will be more likely than not. The action movie, and forgive me if you've heard some of this before, but the action movie is going to cut through more than the drama or the local comedy with local comedic sensibilities for a certain country. For me, I've said this on the last, I think, panel I did, but for me, I kind of have like 4 kind of key baskets that I like to plan that I think work the best. It's the action adventure, it's the romance YA, it's the family feel good, and it's the theatrical, it's the horror movie. And for me, those are strong kind of universal genres that with the right elements, they can play in different formats across the world. And, I guess you have to understand that what we are doing is trying to put on a very business-minded, consumer-facing hat whenever we're making a decision. Because at the end of the day, when I'm talking to business with a distributor, whether that's Amazon, Netflix, or a distributor in Germany that you've never heard of, what they're thinking about is, how do I sell to Amazon, Netflix, or directly to the consumers in my market? So for me, I'm always using the word with my team or with producers, satisfying. You know, we're trying to make, because good is kind of a, what's a good movie, right? It's a little bit relative, but a satisfying movie means that you have delivered to the consumer what they want, right? You've satisfied their need. And for me, movie going, the way I look at it from a consumer standpoint, it comes down to a question that a consumer asks themselves, which is, what do I feel like watching tonight, right? What do I feel like watching? I want to be excited, right? I want to cry. I want to feel something. I want to think, right? And so it's kind of delivering satisfying content that satisfies consumer needs. And so if you know what type of satisfying content, drug, food, right, that you're trying to deliver to your consumer, and then you know who that consumer is, then you can back into analyzing your project and say, this is a satisfying offering that consumers are going to want, therefore distributors are going to want.
I often hear a confusion with some filmmakers about that cast that's required, or they give you comps of previous films. How come this film was sold everywhere and did so well and made 80 million at the box office or 100 million at the box office? And it was a horror film with no one in it. And you're telling my horror film was only worth $300,000 internationally. And I think what some independent filmmakers aren't aware of or forget, or that little missing bit of detail, is that on the studio corporate level, they have more money. Now, it's easy to say that, and everyone kind of knows it subconsciously, but it means more money to promote, more money to market, more money to create awareness, and more money to perfect. So you have to remember, the studios and streamers will also test the films that they're going to release. Test. Tests can cost thousands of dollars, and even triple that to go make the fixes if the results from the test come back negative. So they will make sure the film is testing at a 75 or 80% or higher satisfaction rate with an audience before they will release it. So think they spent more money in the testing and the marketing that we have in our budgets, right? And on the independent side, the distributors and the sales companies and yourselves don't have all of the money to perfect, to promote, to market that advertising. And the only way for an independent distributor to get a consumer to become aware or to likely click on one of their films is through the intrinsic value of the material. Intrinsic value, that is the cast that's known, a director that's known, a producer that's known, a title, a very catchy title that is easy to say and easy to read on a digital platform, and IP. Intrinsic valuable IP. And that is why everyone wants Nick Cage, Sylvester Stallone, et cetera, et cetera. They have intrinsic value to your film. You don't have to spend extra ad dollars necessarily to promote or to incentivize the consumer to click on your film, because an actor that they know in an action film that they are known for is what you're selling them.
Yeah, I mean, for an example to that end too, it's like a movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like, that didn't pre-sell internationally. They had to make the movie highly equity financed, then go screen it for these international buyers, because to pre-sell something, it has to have something quite intrinsic about it to mitigate the risk for these distributors. Because when they're pre-buying something, they're essentially becoming one of your co-investors in the movie. And they're saying, is this investment going to pay off? And the more risk associated with that investment being the cast isn't quite there, so it becomes completely execution dependent. Is it going to get into Sundance? Is it going to win the audience award? All these variables. So they want to, from a pre-sale standpoint, find something that just mitigates as much risk as possible. And even if the movie doesn't turn out, if Gal Gadot's face is on the poster type of thing, people are going to click on it. A streamer's going to buy it just because, I mean, as you can see on Netflix, they make a lot of like not very good movies that have huge cast in them, right? Because they understand the consumer proposition and the clickability. especially in today's market on the streamers. I mean, they literally talk about movies that people can watch without fully watching it because they're doing other stuff at the same time, which is kind of horrible. But another little nuance to the business with all
Well,
this third screen viewing.
There's this funny might be the wrong word. Ironic is probably a better word. Emotional disconnect. A filmmaker, a writer, a director, certainly on the independent side, is being creative and is creating from an emotional place in their body, in their mind, in their soul. It's very emotional. The consumer subconsciously wants to consume something both from a emotional perspective, but also from an instinctual place, right? From a place of comfort. And the distributor in the middle makes no emotional decisions whatsoever. There's no emotion behind it, right? There's something called a P&L, a profit and loss spreadsheet that they have to do to prove to their accountants and their marketing team and their bosses on what it will cost for them to invest in it and what they plan to make from it and how they get to that point, plus marketing, before they are approved to go make an offer to Nat and me on a film that you've emotionally put together. So you have to think about that. The more you realize and understand what goes into a green light or goes into a decision to acquire and distribute or what they're going to pay for your film, the better it is for you as a filmmaker when you're trying to put that material together. And Nat and I are spending a lot of time because we're both producers, Nat and I as well, executive producers. We're both executives in the industry for many years. So we work with filmmakers constantly. We go to set, we look at dailies, we look at scripts and give them notes. And we're always trying to keep the filmmakers kind of in the right lane to do the right thing, to give their film the best chance at distribution. So you're bringing on a sales agent for their expertise. We're working with you as a writer or director for your expertise, and you have to trust the distributor for their expertise, right? And you have to remember that when you're choosing a sales agent. Choosing a sales agent is a relationship you're going to be with for a while. So you have to feel comfortable. You have to do your due diligence, ask other filmmakers and producers about their experience. Look at the films they've released. What does their marketing look like? Their materials? How do they present themselves? Do they attend all the film markets? Do your due diligence. Know what type of relationship you're getting into. And if the first time it doesn't work out with a sales agent, listen to your instinct and perhaps use someone else the next time, right? Use that experience for you. I want to make sure we have time for questions though, Jen. Do we have a lot of them?
We have a good amount. We do.
Okay.
Want to kick off into some
Yeah,
questions?
maybe we get into that because it'll probably help prompt some other explanations, right?
So, our friend Christian is asking, what are the usual preliminary things to have ready for a sales agent if they are going to assist you with financing?
Okay. Well, first, I'm just going to say that, the key to sales is the product itself. It's acquisitions, it's production, right? No matter how good of a sales agent you are, relationships all over the world, if the product isn't there, it's going to be hard to move. So for me, I always say, I'm like, sales is acquisitions. Like sales is what we are, putting together on our slate. As far as from a financing perspective, what you need to put it all together. Well, one thing I noticed a lot with inexperienced producers is they don't have or know how to put together a finance plan. So that's one thing that we will look to do with certain producers is to come on board, and it's part of our kind of executive producer service. And we only do this when we are all in on a project and we really believe in it and we're like doing it, but it's putting together a finance plan. So the key to putting together a finance plan from a nuts and bolts perspective is having a budget done, more or less at least, so you know what that looks like, where you're shooting it, what the tax credit looks like. Is it SAG? Is it WGA? Is it DGA? Is the film going to be bonded? Is it not bonded? How much equity do you have in place? Those are the nuts and bolts of the detail of building out a finance plan. And a finance plan is an Excel spreadsheet that has a ton of these different nuanced inputs. You know, how long is the loan? Is it a 12-month loan? Is it an 18-month loan? You know, how much reserve? There's complicated kind of finance plans that we put together. But beyond that, just the chicken scratch bullet points that you need are, who's the script? What genre is it? What's your budget level? What's the scope of this movie? You know, is it going to be theatrical? It's so hard to make a theatrical movie, something that is an eventized thing where consumers are going to get off their couch to, as a community, go watch something together. But that's largely to do with scope. So is it big budget, medium budget, low budget? Who's the producer? From the producer of. Who's the director? From the director of. And then, of course, who's the cast. So these are all the elements that we digest and we look at, and then we run a set of estimates. We run a set of estimates, and this is what also then goes into the finance plan when you start talking about not what it costs to make the movie, but when it costs how you get your money back to pay back your investors. It's called the recoupment waterfall, you know. So we will look at all these elements and we will go territory by territory throughout the world, and we say, based on historical data and real-time market knowledge that changes every month because of the dynamic changes and shifts in the business, more so today than ever before, but always, we put together a low kind of target of, we should be able to sell, worst case scenario, this level in the aggregate. Here's the number for Germany, France, UK, Spain, Philippines, Vietnam, Poland, former Yugoslavia. Here's the middle case. We, on a good day, we'll hit more like this middle case level. And then of course you have like a high and kind of ask, which is what you go in with, which is like a perfect world, if you're able to get that level. So that is how we put the whole finance plan together. It's just, what are the elements? What do we think it can sell for? How much do you currently anticipate it being, you know, the cost of production to be, and can the investors get paid back when we input all these variables in? Okay, that's all for now.
That's good. I mean, I also, again, not sure if he's asking also what materials to present the sales agent, right? So that goes back to kind of what
that's come up a number of times as well.
Right.
So I want to shed some light on that.
Sure. And you know, it kind of, I mean, I mentioned it on the previous session about how to prepare yourself for the AFM, but the emails or the submissions I receive that we can take most seriously is when there is something to see, right? So that goes back to either a proof of concept, or a short film that this feature is going to be based on, right? Or a teaser with footage that they went out and shot, or from a short film that they had made, right? Because if this is a first-time filmmaker, we don't know if this director has the chops or has any capability to film anything, right? Or what DP they're gonna use. But I've received submissions from first-time filmmakers that I do not know, and they sent me a clip of an action clip or sci-fi or some sort of proof of concept that they made original for their idea and the pitch. And next thing you know, we're trying to make this film with them because they've proven that they have the creativity and the capability and the talent to make something special.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. I've had similar experiences, but let me be like so clear. You cannot be lazy about this and just be like, I have an idea, or here's my movie, whatever. You got to come hard to cut through all the noise, because as Clay mentioned before, we do have our own slates. You know, I have already 12 movies scheduled minimum to come out in 2025. I'm looking for what movies I'm going to be taking to market for distribution in 2026 right now, and to compete with all the stuff that we're already looking at, from established relationships that we already have in the business with proven producers, directors, filmmakers, etc. You got to really come hard with something that's compelling and cuts through. And we will look at it if in a short time frame,
but we'll look at it,
see something. Yeah. So people will send through like, here's a trailer, here's a proof of concept. They've already made the artwork. They've done a previs already. And it's just a quick click and you can watch it and you can be like, okay, cool. Or because Not for us.
Because we are in a you never know industry. We know that. We're in a 1% success industry, but we're also in a you never know industry, right? They also have to make sure that they're not sending, like Nat said, being lazy and sending you a short film or a previs that doesn't look good, right? Or that's because that will also the moment someone sends me a film I don't know the filmmakers. It's an independent film. They finished it. They send it to me. I can tell from the first 30 seconds, just on the production level alone, if it's something I should continue watching.
Easy.
Right?
Easy.
Probably the first frame.
You're like, they didn't pick the right camera lens. It has no depth of field. The light's oversaturated, and you're just like, it just looks cheap, right? You can tell that like instantly.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, listen, there's so much guidance that a sales agent can give you once you actually get them to board your project. And the earlier, the better, because then you don't fall into mistakes that could, hurt the movie down the line. And believe me, there is a distressed asset element to this business where we might pick up a movie that has some great production value because a lot of money was spent on the budget, but it was way too much money to be spent for the film. And unfortunately, we're going to go sell it. A lot of money is going to be lost, even though we're selling it for the most we can possibly get out of the marketplace. But if that conversation was had in advance, we would have said the budget should be half of what you spent. Change these couple things, and I think we have a path that makes sense to profitability and recruitment. But again, getting in the door in the first place is hard. What I would like to see from anyone that's just kind of like trying to get our attention is just be very sincere and real. Like, we can smell bullshit a mile away in this business. So just comment. If you haven't done a movie before, say, I've never done a movie before, but I looked at what you do as a company. You've done these movies that I think this is like, I see this movie as this meets this. I want to make it for, about this budget level. I'd like to do this. I already have this in place. Just kind of those quick things where you can say, read really fast. Okay, I get it. You know what? Let's talk about this one, right? But if we can't be really fast like that, and if you're not even taking the time to show, like, the worst are where you get those the blanket emails where someone just like throw a bunch of people in copy and you're like, hello, sirs, I have a movie. Do you want to do it with me? You're like, dude.
The best one I saw, the best email I saw was he was quoting all the rejections from all the rest of the whole Hollywood, like all of our industry. He was quoting the rejections from those entities, thinking they were considers.
I'm not a good strategy.
I'm not sure if he must not have realized he was being rejected everywhere. But clearly he was quoting everyone that was rejecting him. I found that a very interesting
but don't go out, and this is kind of a rule that we all have to balance as well. It's, you have to kiss a lot of frogs in this business sometimes, but there's a point where, that becomes a waste of time, and your time is better focused on your high probability targets. And so I wouldn't come to a company that, if you take the time to research their slate and they're doing all $10 million plus budget theatrical movies with A-list cast, and you have a tiny little $500,000 horror movie with no cast, like, that's just time wasted. So focus on, really high probability targets. Right. And spend the time to craft those pitches better.
Yeah.
I even get some of those blanket pitches and I'm like, oh gosh, I hope they're not sending this to anybody but me. We are getting asked, and I just think it's a funny one, because both of you started your conversation talking about the suits that you wore to your first AFMs. What is the dress code for AFM these days?
I think that's a great question. Whoever answered that should get an A+. It depends on the individual. I mean, Nat and I happen to be guys that like to dress nice, right? That's why I invited him here on this Zoom. We have colleagues that look like they rolled out of bed. I'm not going to name names. Buyers dress casually. The buyer uniform is jeans, Adidas, sneakers, and like a dress shirt or a polo, but that's because they're running around from meeting to meeting. And they are the money. They don't have to. I mean, back when I started, everyone wore a suit and tie, but of course those days are long over. I usually wear a suit without a tie, or I will wear a jean with a nice blazer and a nice knit polo or something, depending on the day. Nat, I usually see wearing suits without a tie. Look professional. I know this sounds silly, and I don't mean this to sound obnoxious. A poorly fitted, cheap suit is much worse than a nice pair of jeans and a polo, right? Take that how you want it. For women, I'm not gonna even go there with what to suggest for women to wear. Professional attire, right?
Err on the side of
Yes.
more dressed up than less dressed up. I
Yeah.
mean, that's probably a life rule
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah. It's not a cocktail party, it's a professional environment, but it's still Hollywood.
Yeah, but we all wear suits for the most part. Sometimes I even do wear a tie. It's the right mindset. It's the right
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a question from Octavia. She is wondering how she can find actor analysis or global projections on talent in your movie before you actually
You can't.
movie.
Hi, Octavia. You can't. The sales agent has that information and it changes daily.
So
Yeah.
do not bring your estimates to the sales agent. That's part of their job, right?
Yeah. It's not listed anywhere, and it's going to be outdated info anyways, and you don't know if it was streamer or studio or independent or
It is
really.
it's so
Yeah.
nuanced
Yeah.
to the point where if I need to actually run a set of estimates, I have to read the script myself, because even as much as I trust my team, I need to understand every scene in the movie to see if there's a censorship problem
Right.
at least.
Yeah.
To see
And the
how it's gonna play
genre.
in China.
Nick Cage in a drama, black and white, is going to have very little value. Nick Cage in an action film that's high concept is going to have a lot of value. But then how many minutes is Nick Cage in the film? And is he in the first act and the second act and the third act? That's what Nat means by so nuanced. This is not published anywhere. This is the expertise of a sales agent, a good sales agent.
Is the actor playing the good guy role or the bad guy role?
Right. Yeah.
We're literally looking at it and saying, can this be on a 8 p.m. time slot
Right.
on ZDF broadcast in Germany that they can then partner with another company in Germany? Well, that makes sense. And then and that's just, there's so many variables that go in that, I also get frustrated too at times, even with producers that are friends that I know, and they send me a text and they're just like, this actor in a movie, how much? I just don't respond anymore. I'm like, I told you not to ask me that question, because it just is way too detailed. And
one
mistake I see too, mistake, is that the right word? But you see kind of producers put together these decks and they use the comps, and I love comps, but it becomes like a finance conversation to an investor of like, you should finance this movie because look at the box office of these three comparable movies.
Yeah, it means nothing.
And that's completely not how you put together a finance model.
It means nothing. Yeah.
You look at what we can sell it for, and then you model around how you can recoup your money based off of what we think.
And again, if
that
comp had been released by a studio in the 90s, early 2000s, it's a completely different model and revenue stream. So you cannot compare them.
Terrific. Someone is asking, how do you become a sales agent? How did you guys get into this business? Nat?
Just fell into it. Totally fell into it. I went to go work at this company called Odd Lot Entertainment. It was run by Gigi Pritzker. She was a producer that produced The Wedding Planner, Green Street Hooligans. And I went there to work in development production, and they had an international sales division. And Brian O'Shea was up on the second floor doing whatever he did. And I was like, who is that guy? And then, some shift happened and an opportunity opened up to go work in the international sales division. And literally, I think it was Linda at the time. She was running production development over there. She's like, you're good at pitching a movie in the weekend read meetings. I think maybe you should try this sales thing, because basically it's pitching movies, at least on the very most basic of surface levels. It's, talking to people, you should buy this movie because it's cool. And then, like I told you, the next thing I knew, I was at AFM wearing a suit that didn't fit me.
I went to film school in Northridge, Cal State Northridge, and I thought I was going to be the next greatest thing. Rodriguez and Tarantino were at the beginning stages of their careers. So to be in Hollywood during that time was very exciting in the independent space, because independent was becoming a brand and a genre. So of course I thought the world was waiting for my talents. And I got lucky enough to be hired as a production assistant and a runner. So back in the days before you would email scripts, you would print them out and drive them to someone. So I would answer phones in the morning. This was a company called Kushner Lock. I would answer phones in the morning, and in the afternoon I had a pager, and I would do errands, pick things up, drop things off. Sometimes it was cash, sometimes it was a script, sometimes it was the owner's chairs for his pool. And I thought I had made it in Hollywood. Got promoted to the marketing department, and the head of international sales came to me and said, you speak a little bit of Italian. You seem to be a smart kid. The fact that you were a film student, I can forgive you for. Your boss is going to be fired Monday. Do you want to come work for me? And a week later, I was on his desk, went to AFM a few months later, and the rest is history. Yeah. I discovered, I mean, just to add one more note, I discovered early on that the sales team has as much, if not more, creative control than the director sometimes. And I found that very attractive and appealing, because I wanted to be a filmmaker, right? And when you're in school, you think that the director decides everything. And you learn that that's not the case necessarily, unless you are Tarantino or Spielberg, right? That the sales team that is responsible for so much of that film's financing and recoupment and investing and marketing has a lot of creative control. Responsibly so.
And even when if I'm talking to Sony about acquiring a movie, their acquisitions person's not like making the decision. They're saying, okay, let me go talk to the sales team. And so it's the sales and marketing that drive most decision making in the film world, because
and you have to take your response. We're not irresponsible about this. I take it very, very seriously. That's why Nat says we read the scripts. I get on the phone with writers and directors and the editor, and I go to set and meet with the DP. What camera are you using? What lenses do you have a dolly? Where are you posting this? I get sent the VFX shots on films we're producing to give input, right? We are filmmakers. I don't think every single sales agent is a filmmaker, but many of us are. And that was either from a place that we were to begin with and we fell into this side, or we were in this and learned early on we had to become responsible filmmakers.
And man, can I tell you how that translates to doing your job? When I started off, it was just like, let me pitch you the movie, and I don't really know anything about how it's getting made or whatever. And now you're sitting with a sophisticated buyer that's been doing this for many years, and you're able to look them in the eye and talk to them about the details and the level of comfort that gives to these distributors who are looking for comfort is intangible. So the more experienced sales agent you're working with that understands all of the nuts and bolts A to Z through the whole thing, the better off you're going to be, because the better off they're going to be able to do their job with our partners around the world.
Trust your instinct. If they smell and look like a car salesman, trust your instinct. If you want to work with a car salesman, by all means. But if you don't want to work with a car salesman, trust your instinct. And that's what I mean by do that due diligence. Ask other producers. If you don't know any, look on IMDb, see what the company represented, reach out to those filmmakers. What was your experience like working with Clay, working with Nat, et cetera?
Okay, and we're just about time, but let's just one last piece of advice. What is something that every producer should know that maybe they don't, that you feel is an important key piece of information for you to have a successful working relationship with them?
I wonder if Nat and I have the same answer.
You go first.
Well, I'm gonna say delivery, including legal.
Oh my gosh, delivery.
Right?
Okay, this is why you get on board with a sales agent very early, because if you haven't done it before, and listen, part of our job is working with inexperienced producers. In a perfect world, we don't. In a perfect world, I'm not working with inexperienced producers, but it's not a perfect world, and the business is incredibly hard, and there's problems every single day on every single movie. But delivery, as a specific example, is something that a lot of independent producers do not anticipate or budget for. But if you engage with us early, the first thing we send you to solidify a relationship is a sales agency agreement. Attached to that sales agency agreement, which outlines a lot of terms that you once you read, you'll be like, right there's expenses. We attach a delivery schedule, and you have to be able to budget and deliver all of these things. And
these are all the materials, from ProRes files to audio files to all the contracts that you sign with your talent and your DP and paid ad restrictions, and how, all of that. It's all required. And not only is it required, if we license the film to a distributor, they won't pay us before we deliver this to them.
yeah, we need a trailer, we need a poster, you need all your paperwork with SAG, DGA, WGA, IFTA. There's a lot. But again, this is why you ideally partner with a sales agent earlier in the process, because we will tell you this up front, like in bold, red, capitalized letters.
I like ending with advice. I'll start, Nat, you finish. Other than this, but one little bit of advice. Mine, what I always like to share is, in America, I don't know how it is elsewhere, but in America, you do not have to have a lawyer represent you in court. You can defend yourself for murder in court, but I would not recommend it. Okay, that's my advice. You can go sell your film on your own if you want to, but I would not recommend it. I would hire a professional to go do it for you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would, back to Clay's point of doing your due diligence and research. I've unfortunately seen relationships between producer sales agents that didn't go as you'd want. And once a project already kind of has, complications to it, it's really hard to pivot and bring it somewhere else. Once a project's been exposed to the marketplace by someone, and you come to me and you say, you know what, I'm having issues over there, would you be interested? And I'm just like, it's already been exposed. It's just, it becomes too complicated. Life's too short type of thing. So really take your time if you're serious about this business and serious about making a movie to pick your partners wisely, and certainly don't rush into it, because the last thing you want is a bad bedfellow.
And on that note, I will say a sincere thank you to Nat and to Clay for sharing your time with us this morning. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. A recording of these discussions will be made available later this week. And we hope to see you all in Las Vegas for AFM. For more information, visit AmericanFilmMarket.com and get your badge and come meet these guys.
Thank you. See you in Las Vegas.